If you leave open the possibility that you don't have all the answers, that there's still learning to do, that there's still improvement to be made, that's what gives you hope, right?
I was like, okay, what can I eliminate in this process that would allow me to move forward or make things more efficient? And I figured that if I could source a bunch of couches all at once, that would eliminate step one. And so with that couch in particular, I had everything aligned for it to be like a perfect couch. Like the design was there, and like it caught people's eye to where you got plenty of messages and views. It was the style, it was modular. Yeah, I was 22 when I got started in the couch game. It said 8K a month. And I saw that, I was like, if I could do half of that, man, and I could leave my job making 3K a month, working 40 hours a week, I would be a happy man.
It's super, super important if you're going to get 40, 50 of the same couch, that you get the right couch. Because the problem with couch flipping today, this all started for me in around 2019. You know, my history is that like I've been an entrepreneur 10 years, so it was my fifth company over 10 years. But I didn't get into technology right away. You know, at first, you know, when I got out of college, I was like, I want to do something entrepreneurial, but I'm not technical, and I didn't have a friend that wanted to build a tech company with me. So right out of school, I was like, shit, I have a lot of debt, and you know, how do I pay bills, right? And so I need to go figure out something entrepreneurial that I could do that would start making money immediately. So I dabbled in a couple different things before I finally met this guy. He was running a marketing technology company out of an accelerator in Pennsylvania, and he became my mentor. He, you know, liked me and my attitude and, you know, things like that. And he initially recruited me. He's like, all right, come help me sell this marketing technology. And first day I get there, you know, he looks at me and he's like, you know, actually the thing with the MarTech is not going so well. I think the moment in the market has kind of passed for it. And so we're going to do something else. We're going to build a performance marketing agency that, and we're going to build like all of the internal project management tools, et cetera. And we're going to try to scale this. So, you know, day one of my new job, he's like, there's no job, we're going to build a company, right? And that was a very valuable experience for me. And so, you know, over the next 4 years, from 2015 to 2019, I spent 4 years building this marketing agency. And it was a good business. Like, we got to 7 figures revenue. We had 15 employees, an office in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I was living at home, like in my hometown. I was in this long-term relationship, and I had this like decent company, right? And so this is around age 27 for me. I'm 31 now. And for some reason, I just like was not very happy, you know? I think a lot of people in a similar position, that's all they want. And if that's what you want, more power to you, you know? But it really wasn't what I wanted when I first got into entrepreneurship. Like, I always thought like I'd be traveling the world and, you know, on a yacht somewhere. But instead, I like my life seemed to just be more like, I'm going to live in Pennsylvania. I'm going to keep growing this business. I'm going to marry this girl. And it just felt like very planned out for me. And I, you know, didn't realize it at the time, but slowly, one by one, I started rebelling against all of those things. And so, you know, I exited the company. I was like, I want to get into tech. And then the pandemic hit. You know, I looked at my ex-girlfriend at the time and I'm like, why don't we move to Mexico? Because I had never been there. She had never been there. She was working remote at the time too. So we decided to move down there for about 6 months. This was November 2020 of the pandemic. We get there, you know, me and her end up breaking up as well while we're there. So, you know, this relationship about 3.5 years. And then all of a sudden, everything that was in my life that made me comfortable, like my company, my hometown, my relationship, it was all gone. In the period of about a year, right? Year and a half, all of that like disappeared. And that's really when I started to live the life that I wanted. There's nothing bad about where I used to be. It's just not really what I wanted. Deep down, I always wanted something different, something, let's say, more. And so I had that, you know, I ended up living in Mexico for a year and a half in Playa del Carmen, getting, you know, acclimated to living in a different culture, speaking a different language, working remote. And then when we started Ivy, I ended up moving to New York at the end of 2021. We raised some money, and initially we were a totally different company with Ivy. We were fintech. We're offering financial services to gig workers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, DoorDash delivery people, etc. Yeah, and so you know, that's how I got to New York. But Then we pivoted November 8th, 2022. So almost exactly 1 year ago, we pivoted and we found the market of couch flippers. We started building Ivy Flip, and the rest is what she wrote. And now the business is pretty stable. It's in a good spot right now, and I just have we don't have an office. Everyone's working remote, so I have a lot more flexibility to move about and do some more remote work. And I think that's really what makes me happy. So I'm gonna just focus on that.
Thanks for sharing that. That gave me perspective on your story that I haven't heard before. I didn't know you lived in Mexico, so you probably picked up the language a little bit.
I speak some Spanish. I speak some Portuguese now. Yeah, I've been learning Portuguese this year. And actually, what happened is I used to speak Spanish, and then I learned Portuguese, and now it's I don't speak either of them because they're so similar. There's no real need for me to speak Portuguese in New York City, but there is a big need for me to speak Spanish. And I was at the bodega yesterday trying to talk to the worker, and I'm like, crap, I don't remember how to speak Spanish right now. It's just only Portuguese coming out of my mouth. So I'm actually headed back to Mexico in 2 weeks, so I need to brush up on my Spanish again. So
If I may ask, you mentioned something that kind of resonated with me. You said you were doing everything, maybe on the exterior, your life looked awesome, seven-figure company, long-term relationship, living in Pennsylvania, but you started to rebel. Was that a thing that kind of got to a point where you kind of just exploded, or was it subtle where your hints were from your internal, within you, this don't feel right? Or did it all come to a boiling point where you're just this give it all away and change things up?
it was very slow and very subconscious. It was very slow and very subconscious. So it's not with leaving the company, for example, it's not there was a point where I was all right, I'm sick of this shit. I'm out. What happened was I started to fight with my mentor. And this man was so patient with me over the years because, when we met, I was 23 years old, right? Pretty young. Probably more stubborn then than I am today. I think I'm a little more even keel today, but I was very kind of stubborn, if not precocious, let's say. We had a couple disputes about, how the company was operating and the direction of where we should take things. And at first, it was once in a while we'd have these disagreements. And then towards the end, it was every other day. And I didn't know it, but this was me having a reaction to just generally not being happy with how my life was set up. And if it wasn't for him realizing that, then I'd probably still be there today. And so eventually one day he sat me down and he's like, Charles, you got to go do your own thing because this is not a healthy or productive relationship for us anymore. And he saw that before I did, right? He saw that this is a young 27-year-old guy, still has a lot of ambition and wants to tackle the world, and he's not going to get what he needs in this marketing agency. And so he let me go. But if he, hadn't taken that step, then I'd probably still be there today. Even in my relationship, it was kind of something similar. I don't think I was ready to let that go. In my head, when it comes to love, you kind of pick someone and you stick to it, right? Because I look at all the traditional marriages, something like a 50% divorce rate. It's most marriages end in failure, right? If there's one objective measure of whether or not a marriage has succeeded or failed, it's probably divorce. It's definitely a marriage has failed if there's divorce. And there's a bunch of other soft signals, right? Compare that to an arranged marriage. And the divorce rate in an arranged marriage is extremely low. And so why is that? Well, traditional marriages, maybe they're based more in love and emotion and this feeling that is fleeting. Feelings come and go, emotions change. But arranged marriages, they're built much more on culture, tradition, family, these much deeper values that transcend emotion. So, this is how I was thinking about relationships. And, I'd been together so long with my ex-girlfriend. In my head, I was like, okay, we're going to be together, right? This is what love is. And then, when we were living in Mexico together, I think when we met, I was a little bit older. Maybe I was 3-4 years older. And so I had matured a lot since college. And when we met, she was just coming out of college. And I think when we got to Mexico, she hit that maturity spike as well. And then all of a sudden she's sort of looking at her life and realizing like this is not enough either, right? What we're doing in this relationship is not enough. So she brought that to me and she's like, look, this is not enough for me. And I think I looked at the relationship too at that moment. I'm like, I think you're right. So another example of my life where I didn't know it, but I was not putting enough effort into the relationship. That's why it wasn't enough. And that's sort of me rebelling against the situation, but not having presence of mind or maybe the courage to be the one to let that go. And so, really like her having the courage to recognize that and be willing to let it go, that set me free. And, so this is one of the more important lessons that I've learned in my life, actually, is that for so many people, we go through life and we only have one life to live. There is a version of our life that would make us really happy and content. It's the version of the life that we actually want to live. But we're so scared to go after that because we're afraid of letting go of the things that make us comfortable. And after learning that lesson back in 2021, letting go of everything that made me comfortable to go and pursue the things that I really want, anytime I'm confronted with that choice today, I go into it head first. So I'm really not afraid anymore of letting go of the things that are comfortable to me in pursuit of the things that I truly want. Because the idea, the limiting belief there is that this is as good as it gets. But in reality, there's more out there, and so many people in their life fall into this trap of thinking, this is as good as it gets. They're afraid. I hate this job, but if I quit it, can I get another job? Is there really another job out there that's going to be better? Or this relationship, I hate this, she makes me feel like shit, or he makes me feel like crap, but we've been together for so long. And, will I ever find someone else out there? Am I good enough? And not just me. Everyone has these moments. Everyone goes through this internal battle. Yeah. So that's something I've learned that's been really impactful to me. And now that we're talking about it, maybe someone else will get value out of that.
That person is me. Charles, thank you. That was resonating, brother, because I gotta say that this year, a big bulk of this year was going through that exact feeling in different areas of life. Some of the same areas, actually, to where your courage is just like, it's inspiring me to, face those things and not settle, actually choose what you want. And it's so true because I look around, friends, family, and they kind of accepted where they're at, especially my parents. And like, if I were to say one thing that's been like, I guess, tugs on the heartstrings this year, like makes me get emotional, is like kind of seeing that within my parents and knowing that I can't do that. I can't just stay comfortable or not go really push myself to the limits. But it's often easy to get comfortable and not want to let go of where you're at, maybe physical location where you're at, or what opportunities you have or relationships. So man, that hit, brother. I don't know what pushed you to say that right now, but I needed to hear that. So
I'm glad that, you got some value out of that. The reason I brought this up has been on my mind a little bit. I was talking to a couch flipper the other day, and he was giving me feedback about how I come off on the podcast and to like couch flippers, etc. It's like, you seem a little elite, right? You're not so approachable or accessible to couch flippers. And you kind of seem like this tech guy that wandered into this industry, and who knows what your intentions are. If you really knew my story, where I came from, how I got here, it's really not the case. No one handed me anything, right? So if you see me post stuff about my travels on my personal Facebook, and my life looks all good and stuff, I'm not gonna lie, my life is pretty good right now. I've created a life that I want, but it took a lot of sacrifice, a lot of eating shit over 10 years to get to a point where at 31 I'm finally really starting to be happy with where I'm at. It's not an overnight process. It is my entire life, leading up until this point. A lot of struggle, a lot of sacrifice, not being handed anything, looking at myself in the mirror, not being happy with what I saw. And so my message really is that if I can do it, and it's not like I've even reached the end of the rainbow, but if there are things about my life that other people aspire to, great, there's a way to get there, but you have to go for it. That's why I figured I'd start putting a little bit more of that message out there too. Is I think this is a big part of why couch flippers get in the game. It's because they look at the cards that are dealt to them by society, and it's like, okay, go to school, or go work for this guy and you can make $20 an hour, 40 hours a week, maybe a little bit more with overtime. And that just doesn't get you anywhere in 2023 in modern society. And so they want something more. And they're looking for ways to get ahead and break out of the pack. And couch flipping just happens to be this like nice little discrete business model that gives you that opportunity. Now, I don't think that everyone's going to become a millionaire selling couches, but I think it is a good foot in the door. It's relatively low barrier to entry. You could probably get started $10,000 in investment capital, get a truck, get a storage unit, have some liquidity to purchase couches, and then you can build a nice, $250,000 revenue business for yourself. Start saving up liquidity, and then go transfer that money and savings and knowledge, most importantly, into your next venture. And that's really what the American dream is about. So I believe this is why couch flippers get into the game. They're looking for an opportunity to do something for themselves, create a better life for themselves, their family. And that's why we're so passionate about giving people the information and the resources that they need to be successful with this business.
And you've been doing it like crazy these last couple of weeks, just with the content you've been putting out. And it's so cool to see people are already resonating with it, because to get into kind of the evolution of the couch game is, I first heard of it in 2021. I'm sure you probably saw it around similar times. I saw that Ryan Panetta video, and at first, like the title said, the greatest side hustle no one knows about. Ryan Panetta covering his lips, and it said 8K a month. And I saw that, I was like, if I could do half of that, man, and I could leave my job making 3K a month, working 40 hours a week, I would be a happy man. And I made that transition, and when I did it, I worked the first 6 months kind of part-time, making 4K a month and feeling like, ooh, this is more money than I've ever tasted before, but having that freedom and flexibility. And I kind of noticed other people in the game that maybe saw it as a side hustle. And then I came across the couch flipping group and saw a lot of people that were doing it maybe full-time, kind of treating it as like a main income. And I was like, oh, it's possible to do that as like kind of full-time. And then now you're seeing people take on, trying to scale, maybe get bigger warehouses, get new furniture in bulk, and people trying to take that next step. And you can kind of see like the waves. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is coming next, or what is your perspective of the evolution of the game as a whole? Because I know you've studied it from like bird's eye view, really looking at it, and then now you're in the game too. So I feel like your perspective will be just crazy, and I'm eager to hear.
Yeah, well, in just a couple of years, this is couch flipping has gone from an obscure way of making money to a more robust business model with an entire community behind it. And then you have the entrance of players such as Ivy Flip that are now in the process of creating technology and resources, tools that make it, even easier, not just to get started, but to be successful and take your business to the next level. So the industry is evolving, it's advancing. And the same thing that happens in any industry that advances is going to happen to the couch flipping game. So for example, when I started out in entrepreneurship 10 years ago, the game looked very different than how it looks today in 2023. And it looked even more different 10 years prior, right? So let's say I started around 2010. In 2000, that's when you had the dot-com bubble, et cetera. And even 10 years prior to that, if you wanted to create a tech startup, where do you go? Like, what resources do you tap into? The internet's not even a thing yet, right? So if you want to learn how to do some of these things, where do you get that information? Where do you get funding to go be able to quit your job and pursue the development of a business like a tech company? And so post 2000, all of that's changed, right? Now the internet's a thing, information is ubiquitous. There are institutional sources of capital now, venture capitalists that have specific things that they look for in early stage technology companies that lead them to writing a check. And, there are books and books and books out there that you can read to try and figure out like how should you go about it if you want to be a tech entrepreneur. And so that environment has changed a lot in just like 20, 30 years. So let's say the couch flipping industry started about 5 years ago. There are probably people doing that, flipping couches as a hobby on Craigslist, etc. prior to that time, but these people are just sort of unorganized. They don't know who other couch flippers are. They just know something that they're doing for themselves and that it makes money. And two things happen when the information becomes more popularized and commonly understood, and more people get into the game. The first is that initially there's more competition because the industry hasn't advanced and the tactics have not advanced either. And so people are doing the same thing. They're competing for the same supply and they're competing relatively for the same demand. And so at first it seems like it's just becoming more competitive, and that the ability to make money through this side hustle or this entrepreneurial endeavor is becoming more and more limited. But eventually, I believe that there's going to be something like a breakthrough. And you see this happening right now. People assumed that the only way that you could be successful with a couch flipping business is by finding your inventory on Facebook Marketplace and selling it on Facebook Marketplace. But in the conversations that I've been having with flippers throughout the past like 2 or 3 months, a new model is being revealed, right? Which is really that if you're buying on Facebook Marketplace and selling on Facebook Marketplace, this is really just the first step in the ladder of being a couch flipper, and that there are many rungs above that. If you need more supply, you can go run pickup ads. You could build a website. You could optimize that website for search engines. And then that there are people that are willing to just give you their furniture because it's an inconvenience to try and go sell it on Facebook Marketplace. Beyond just pickup ads, maybe you could run consignment ads. So there are people that are willing to give you their high-end couch, have you sell it for them, and then split the profits with them 50-50. And there are also opportunities for you to make direct offers on the furniture that are like on someone's furniture, but instead of having to go find it on Marketplace, have that person come directly to you, so you have a little bit of an upper hand in the negotiation. Because as soon as a couch makes it onto Facebook Marketplace, now it's everyone sees it and everyone's putting in offers and you have to compete. But if people are coming to your website and trying to sell you their couch directly one-to-one, that means there's probably a lot less competition for that same deal, and they trust you. They want to do business with you. You have a little bit more negotiating leverage to get those couches. That's just on the sourcing side. And then, of course, there's technology like ours that can help you get more organized, help you see more of the couches that are available in your area and get there faster. So there's a variety of things that you can do to improve your sourcing of couches. You can even get into new furniture, which is something that I know that you've done recently. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well. And then on the sales side, beyond just listing couches on Marketplace, your profile, other people's profiles, you can start building a brand. You can start building a company. You can have an online storefront, you can have a retail storefront, and you could probably even start flipping other kinds of things. There's no reason why this business is just limited to flipping used furniture. I think anything that is a large, bulky item that is constrained to like local delivery, you could flip. And that's probably where the business is going to evolve. So I think you're going to see individual flippers realizing that in order to stick with this game and be really successful, they can't just rely on the same tactics that they've been using for years and years and that other people have been using. They need to up their game, and they need to operate more as a legitimate business instead of just a side hustle if they really want to make good money doing it. And for some people, the juice is not worth the squeeze. Okay, fine, go do something else. But for other people, they see this as a legitimate business and they're willing to make that investment. So I think you're going to see more legitimate players emerge out of this primordial ooze, right? The strong will survive. And so it's not that the opportunity does not exist. It's that you have to work differently, work smarter, work harder in order to maintain that opportunity. But that's like with any opportunity in life. It's sort of like there's a certain sense of entitlement really to think that like no one else should be flipping couches and this opportunity is just for me, And so when I hear that, it's like what I'm really hearing is like I don't want to put in the work. It is what it is. So that's the one thing. More legitimate players are rising out of the primordial ooze. The second thing is there will be the community that exists will become more mature, and there will become a more consistent and organized set of standards by which people adhere to and abide by. Basically, there will be communal norms around what it is. Communal norms will develop around what it means to be a couch flipper. And we see this in the very early stages happening right now, which is very interesting. Like with Nick Reichart and the Good Couch guys, they're hosting that conference out in Denver. I think I'm going to be there. I think you're going to be out there too, right? Be good to see you in person. But that's really just the start. And with any number of other industries, you have these like organizing bodies which sort of start to develop the norms for how that industry operates, and also even self-regulates. Because the problem with couch flipping today is like you have a bunch of individual actors scattered all across the United States and Canada, et cetera, and they're all operating like according to their own standards. And so, the experience that you have dealing with one couch flipper could be very different from another couch flipper that you deal with. But as the industry starts to mature and people understand how to operate these businesses in a more consistent way, there's going to be basically a playbook. Like, this is how business should be. And we figured out all the different nooks and crannies. And that sets the standard for how other couch flippers trying to get into the game should operate as well. Yeah, these kinds of organizations and communal standards exist in a variety of dimensions across a variety of industries, whether you're in like cement or like real estate, or you're a plumber, or you're like a franchise restaurant, right? All of these different business models have been elucidated and have standards by which they operate. Now, not everyone has to operate by those standards, but they exist. So I think that's also coming in the future for the couch flipping industry. The final point I'll make, and I've been ranting a little bit. The first is more legitimate players arise from the primordial ooze. So people are going to have to step it up if they want to be successful in couch flipping. And then second is, among these more established players, there's going to be a set of communal norms or standards by which they operate and agree to. This is the best practice of what it looks like to be a couch flipper. And then finally, I think for everyone else, right, if you want to make money flipping couches, but you don't want to go through the effort of building a business, because that is an effort, right? Maybe you just want to make the money. I think there's going to be some consolidating entity that creates those opportunities for people. So you want to make money flipping couches, but you don't want to build a couch flipping business. Well, you can go work for a couch flipping business, right? And so there are all these like individuals that really want to keep it more like a side hustle. Well, they can go work for those more established couch flippers and work within the context of their business as in sort of like a gig work capacity.
Kind of like the two guys you've had on the podcast so far, Roman and Nick, I believe. I think more Nick has that model of creating a place where other couch flippers can maybe join him, and he takes care of the cleaning and the presenting. Like you said, it's already kind of happening, but it's funny. What's also happening is the competitive scarcity mindset also you can see within the group of the people that don't want to change. And man, great observations right here for sure.
So with Nick's model, what he's done is he has a brick and mortar retail location in a prime area of downtown Denver. And that's made a tremendous difference for his business. Before, 20% of his sales were happening in person and then 80% online. Now 80% of his sales happen in person, 20% online. So people, basically, if you have a showroom in an attractive location, people will come and visit. And if they have a need and they're in a room with like 20 couches, they're probably going to walk out with a couch. That's what he's found, right? And so that brick and mortar presence has been really transformative for his business. What he's doing out in Denver now is he's subleasing space in his brick and mortar to other couch flippers. So they pay him rent, and in exchange, they can display their inventory in his showroom. And it has a variety of other benefits, like he has all the cleaning materials ready to go there. He has like a staging area, and he has a salesperson that works standard business hours, 9 to 5, I think on the weekends too, available to like show your furniture to customers that are interested in buying it. So without needing to, undergo all of that expense on your own, you can rent a portion of his showroom and like run your flipping business out of his showroom. So, it's kind of like WeWork for couch flipping, or I think he called it an antique mall, right? It's like antique mall for couch flipping. So that's ultimately where the business model, like as the industry evolves, I see that heading as well. So, some people, they're going to make the decision. We want to be more organized. We want to level up. We want to take our game to that next rung on the ladder. Okay, great. For everyone else who doesn't want to compete and they want to keep things simple, they're going to have opportunities to work within the couch flipping businesses that become more established. But yeah, it is going to be harder for your average just side hustler to make money casually flipping couches, it's going to require more energy, more effort, more organization to be successful as a couch flipper. That's where the industry is headed.
When you look at guys like yourself, I just listened to the Roman podcast where he kind of went in at the tail end, kind of shared what his next plans are, which kind of blew my mind, that all these guys have the same similarity, that they are seeing beyond the competition veil, I guess, and looking towards what they could do to make the whole industry or all couch flippers' lives easier, or give more opportunities and bring back more to the community. For those that are wanting to do something like that, or like yourself, provide information, a software that helps people maybe be better in this space, for those people that want to maybe see further down the road, be a visionary like you guys, what do you suggest they do to find where their skill sets could align, where they could do something like that? Or do you think that's part of just the evolution of kind of what you said at the beginning, eating shit for 10 years and figuring out what's your strengths, what you're good at, what's your natural gifts? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Now, my perspective coming into the couch flipping industry is probably very different than your average couch flipper. Now, it wouldn't have been 10 years ago, right? Because 10 years ago, when I was 21 years old, and I was like hearing about couch flipping, I would have gone into it just like everyone else, which is like, all right, here's a side hustle. I can make some money and like flip some couches. But, you know, my situation at 31 is not what it was at 21, right? So I don't have a need to go side hustle and flip couches right now. It's just not where my life is at. So here's what my need was coming into this industry. We had raised some money for our fintech startup in 2021. The markets totally bottomed out in 2022. Like if you've been reading anything about the public markets, tech stocks, tech companies, all of that shit blew up hard last year. And it's probably not going to get better for the next couple years. And so as a fintech company, we needed to raise more money in order to keep operating. It's basically the only way to build a fintech company like we were, because we're lending money to people and we need to borrow money to lend money. And investors are no longer investing in growth. They're investing in profitability. So they're only going to give you money if you're making money. They're not giving you money just because your numbers are going up. And so we reached the point around this time last year where we're like, shit, we got to make money. And there's no way to make money doing what we're doing. We got to pivot. And so the thing that we liked about the fintech company was we liked the mission. We were offering financial services to people who are credit invisible, underbanked gig workers, right? DoorDash delivery drivers, Uber drivers, etc. But when we're looking at their bank accounts to do the credit risk analysis, we're like, these guys don't even have $500 in savings. So, you know, we could save you a couple interest points on a loan, but does that really solve the problem? So that's really what got us into the couch flipping industry. Is we're like, how do we put money into people's pockets? So we started looking around for, you know, different side hustles that people have, different ways that people make money outside of their traditional jobs. And we found furniture flipping, couch flipping. The furniture flippers, they tend to be more like artists, is what we found. And then that the couch flippers are more like, they want to make money, right? They're more entrepreneurs. Not that furniture flippers are not entrepreneurs, but you get what I'm saying. And so that's how we came across the couch flipping industry. And so we started talking to couch flippers. Hey, what are your problems? A lot of them came back with the same issue, which is sourcing. You know, we feel like we could grow our business if we had better access to more quality couches. And we're like, okay, how do we do that? We built the sourcing tool and we rolled it out. So that's sort of like, you know, how we landed in this market. And that's a very different story from how this would have played out when I was 21, right? If I was 21 back in the day, just out of college, ton of student debt, have bills to pay, haven't raised money, don't know how to raise money, then it definitely would have been like, okay, how do I start selling a couch? Like, how do I start selling couches? How do I bootstrap? How do I save up $10,000, right? And so everyone's journey into the couch flipping game it's relative to, you know, who they are and where they're at in their entrepreneurial life cycle. But, you know, those things will change over time. Now with Roman, what's interesting is he has a background in startup sales and tech sales. right? So I think he's already had some exposure to what it would be like to create a tech company, but it's not something that he's done before on his own, really, right? It's something that he's been trying to get off the ground. And those two like experiences in the past sort of merged together for him, where he's like, he has this experience in tech sales, software sales, startup sales, etc. And he also has experience growing this couch flipping business. And these two lines of experience just kept converging until it materialized in, you know, the tech business that he's trying to launch now. So it's a tech business within the couch flipping industry. And you can kind of see the evolution of that. So this is a long-winded way of saying that everyone's journey and into the couch flipping industry and how they're going to interact with it really depends. It depends on like where you're coming from, your past, the experiences that you've had up until that point. And, you know, as long as you're being open-minded, you know, trying to push to what those opportunities could be, you'd be surprised at what happens when you just kind of go with the flow. It's like the simplest way to put it. You just gotta go for it. Like if you're 21 and this is your first real entrepreneurial thing, go figure out how to flip a couch, right? Now keep doing that over and over. Make $10,000 a month. Save that in your bank account. And then, you know, keep trying to grow. Don't assume that now you're making $10,000 a month, this is like all that you want out of life. For some people it is. And if you're one of those people, no judgment. You know, I think it's the main thing is like know who you are, know what you want, and if you happen to be one of those people that is not just satisfied making $10,000 a month and you want more, then figure out how to make more. Network, have conversations, plug into conversations like this, try to find resources, think about how you can be doing things differently and better in your business. And that's ultimately what's going to lead you to your next opportunity. And oftentimes it's not what you think it's going to be. If you asked me 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, do you think you're going to be flipping couches? No. Absolutely not, you know? But at the end of the day, like I like this industry. I like the people in it. I think it's like honest, decent, hard work. And actually a lot of my past experiences leading up until this point make me a pretty good person to like think about and talk about this industry. Like it's not what I thought I'd be doing at all, you know?
Yeah, that's so true with what you said. Kind of just intentionally go with the flow, and the opportunity will lead you to the next thing. Because, yeah, I was 22 when I got started in the couch game. And at first, I was just trying to leave my job. In that first 6 months, was making like 4K a month on 10 to 15 hours a week. And I thought that was like my philosophy back then was make the most amount of money in the least amount of effort. And then I got exposed to somebody that was making, as a friend of mine, I joined a Discord group, and he was making about 20K a month. And he honestly exposed me to not only my limiting beliefs around money, but that I was kind of being lazy, you know, and not taking the next steps in my life. And he also exposed me to putting out content and holding yourself accountable, being on camera, sharing some sort of value if you can. And through his guidance, January of 2022 is when I had my first 8K month with the Couch Flipper Biz. The next 6 months was like 6K a month. And honestly, I was feeling good. But then you get to a point where you're exposed to maybe the Facebook group, and you see people killing it, doing a lot more than you are. And you start asking questions and being teachable. And I felt for the first time in my life, like a real teachability came, where I was like, man, let me learn from these guys because they're ahead of the game. I'm new, I'm a rookie. They're making life-changing money. At the time, I thought six figures was like a multi-millionaire. So I was like, man, let me hear what these guys got to say. Start listening and applying what they were saying. And then July 2022, I had my first 12K profit month and finished off that year averaging about 9K a month, like net. And that changed my life. But something interesting happened where I started to think I knew it all, you know, where I got to a point where I was giving value, sharing what was working, and then all of a sudden you get into a teaching mode where you maybe feel like, oh, I have arrived, you know, maybe you've reached a goal that you've been wanting to hit for a while, and then you no longer are teachable. Then it's funny how after that you'll start seeing things kind of fizzle. Maybe your numbers start to decline. And for me, not only my numbers, but my excitement for life, that feeling of curiosity kind of vanished. And then you had this period of from January to March before I discovered new furniture, that I was kind of in that place you described at the beginning of this call, of kind of feeling like I'm not in a place where I want to be. Um, I need to change things up. I either need to let go of some things and get out of my comfort zone or just change things up a bit. And luckily at that moment, just being at the right place at the right time, being in the Facebook groups, connections made, somebody presented the opportunity to get new furniture. So I ended up rolling with that. But what you said about kind of going with the flow, but being open minded, good things will happen. And things aren't often as you expect them to be, but I love that.
That's a honestly that's a big lesson that I've learned this year is like I'm not done growing. I don't know, like, they say that the brain keeps developing, right, until you're like in your late 20s. And so what I derived from that was, oh, I'm fully developed. I'm a grown man now. Like at 31 years old, I'm a grown ass man. There's like when I was like 28, maybe there was a question, oh yeah, you can make a mistake and people still laugh, haha. When you're 31 and you're fucking up, there's no charity. Like you're like I'm a grown ass man. And so, I think going into my 30s, I sort of had that mindset of like everything I'm going to learn in life, I've learned. And it's really this actually even this past couple of months, like going to Korea, going to Brazil, spending that month with my family, etc. And I'm like, shit, like there's still so much that I don't know. And it's actually very empowering. It was very empowering to have that realization. It's like I don't have all the answers, because when you have all the answers, or you think you're supposed to have all the answers, there's no room for growth. Like where you're at is as good as it gets. And if you feel that way, then everything starts to feel closed and sort of like fatalistic in that, your life, wherever it is today, that's where it's at. And if it's going to get better, it's only maybe a little bit and incrementally. But if you leave open the possibility that you don't have all the answers, that there's still learning to do, that there's still improvement to be made, that's what gives you hope, right? That's what gives you the idea like, okay, wherever I'm at, like it might be shitty right now, and there might be some stuff about my life that I'm not so happy about right now, but there's room to grow. And that was very empowering for me over the past couple months, just realizing like I actually don't know it all. There's a lot about business and about like what I want in life that I'm still figuring out, and I don't have all the answers. So very powerful moment for me too. Dante, like where are you at with the business right now? Because I watched your video, the new couches. Obviously you've been focused a little bit more on the new couches, you've been pushing out some content, so I'd love to sort of get look into your mindset as of where we're at today.
Yeah, so like I said, March was the first time I got introduced to the new couch game, and it was really in a place where I had done used. I kind of felt like I had reached a point in the used game where I was a solo operation, kind of doing everything from finding the couches, sourcing them, cleaning them, storing them, listing them, and then going out and delivering them. So I was like, okay, what can I eliminate in this process that would allow me to move forward or make things more efficient? And I figured that if I could source a bunch of couches all at once, that would eliminate step one. So what I ended up doing was got 40 couches brand new in the box. And what had happened was it was great because I had one color, one set, one style, and it was a good style cloud couch, name brand, Albany Park. And with that, it was awesome because I could just put one display down at my shop, didn't take up too much room, and all I had to do is rent some flex space to hold some of the inventory. And then I would just show that one model, and I could still get my used game going, keep it going. And with that couch in particular, it had everything aligned for it to be like a perfect couch. Like the design was there, like it caught people's eye to where you got plenty of messages and views. It was the style, it was modular. It was just everything about it. It had the brand backing it, the reviews, the website, everything to where people would come in person, see it, and then compare the value to the actual retail price and be like, oh, I'm getting a bargain. To where, like I shared in the video, 80% of the people that came and viewed it left with it. And I ended up selling out those 40 couches. And in a little less than 2 months, we got it for about 36,000 and ended up selling them for 56,000 total. So about 20K gross profit. And to me, that was a home run. And I got so excited that I was like, okay, if that was that easy, I could still run my used operation. What can I do now? So I was like, okay, let me order more. This time, let me do 63. And then what I ended up doing is I got two separate loads, one of 40 and one in 23. And the first of 40 had two colors of the same set. The 23 set load had two colors as well. completely different styles. And I received them all excited, all hyped up. And then I ran into my first like big problem where I kind of felt overwhelmed. One being I had $50,000 out, not all my money, but you have some people that you maybe invested with you. You have that responsibility on your hands. Now you have a little bit more overhead because you have to store these boxes, of course. But the big problem I ran into was I have I have four different display models in my shop where I'm trying to run my used. And like the shop that I was working out of is not the most, I guess, professional place to call a showroom. And little did I know that most people are going to want to come see these couches. So the problem I ran into was I have four new couches, different styles that people want to come view. And I'm just in a cramped shop trying to run my used game. And that came to really slowed down a lot. And I ended up kind of trying to operate the new without having a showroom room, which was a big, not a big mistake, but it was something that was a challenge that I had to overcome. So what I ended up doing was having to rent a little bit more space to separate the used from the new. They couldn't be in one under the one roof just with the amount of space I had. But in terms of what was working with the new is people want to come see it, especially if it's over a certain cost, like over $1,000. People want to come see it in person. And I took something from Gary Friedman, Restoration Hardware CEO. He said like people have this idea that one, they look at the design that kind of catches their attention. Two, they want to come see and feel the quality in person. And then three, they make a judgment whether it's of value or not, and they make the purchase or not. And I've noticed that with some of the couches I had on that second go around, maybe the quality wasn't as good, or maybe the design wasn't as great, to where coming in person, you got to see the difference of that quality makes in a couch when people come see it. And there's just so much with the new that I'm figuring out, kind of just testing it. But there's nothing like a used couch that you can get for $50 and sell it for $450. With the new game, yeah, you might buy a couch for 800 landed, 900 landed, sell it for 1300, 1400. But then you're dealing with a lot of things that I didn't think about when I was just in the used simple operation, paying $200 a month in rent and being able to profit like or just net pretty much whatever you make besides gas and $200 in rent. So right now I'm learning in the new. I wouldn't say I'm the person to ask about how to do it successfully yet. And that's the beauty of what we just talked about, of not having all the answers. And that's something I'm trying to learn myself, because as somebody, I'm sure you can relate, putting out content, you feel like you have to have some answers, but just kind of being aware that, hey, this is a learning game, and use it's been loyal and great and is always there, bread and butter, but the new is kind of just an undiscovered territory. So kind of learning and going one step at a time.
Absolutely. I think people tune in because they want to learn, but it doesn't mean that you need to have all the answers. Part of it is they want to learn, but they also want to commiserate with your experience. So in fact, you sharing some of the struggles that you're going through in your business might make your content more relatable to the audience. Because if we only talk about our successes and the things that are going right in our business, then it seems like we're perfect people, right? And like everything we touch, it's gold. But that's not the reality for entrepreneurship. That's not the reality for most people starting a business. Is most people, you're going to eat a lot of shit. As an entrepreneur, you eat a lot of shit.
I have been these past months, brother.
And it's the mindset that you have as you're eating shit that's going to make the difference at the end of the day. So there's a saying, it's like, you only fail if you quit. If you don't quit, then the failures are just lessons that you learn on the road to success. You only fail if you quit. Like otherwise, like every failure, it's just a lesson. You did something wrong. You could have done it better. You learn from that mistake and you won't repeat it again. And then you just keep going. You pick yourself up and you keep going down that road. So I definitely understand the need to present yourself in a certain way, talk about your successes. But actually, I don't think that's, exactly what your viewers are tuning into your content for either. I think, like, you're very entertaining in a way that I am not. Like, I think I tend to be very logical maybe. And so you're not getting a whole lot of like energy out of me at any given time. So I think people definitely, I tune into your content for that enthusiasm and, the persona that you have. I really enjoy it. And then yeah, just you have that like on the ground, real flipping experience. You're taking risks and you're taking your viewers on a journey with you as you're taking those risks. And so, I think being open about the successes and failures with your new furniture business can really only help you when it comes to the content. What's interesting is immediately before this call, I just did a coaching call, and this is a flipper out in Miami. They do about 30K sales a month, 30K sales a month, and that translates to maybe 13K net income a month because they have employees that they're using to do the sales on marketplace. And they just went through a similar issue where they bought 48 new couches. They bought a container, and they bought that in July, and maybe it was August. It's been 3-4 months, and they've sold less than half of the inventory, and their margins are not what they thought it would be. So they thought they'd sell through all the couches by now, and they also thought they could sell the couches for more, but on average they're making $300 gross profit per new couch. And so some of the same issues, right? It's like you don't have to worry about where the couch is coming from. You don't have to clean them. You don't have to stage them. There's some convenience associated with having new inventory, but you're not getting a couch for $50 and flipping it for 1,000 either, right? So your margins are definitely not where it used to be. One thing that you said that made me think back to the conversation I had literally just like 2 hours ago is you had the perfect couch. These guys, we actually didn't talk about that at all. Like, what couch did you get a container of? He's like, it's all of the same unit. I'm like, what do you think the problem is? Like, it's all of the same unit. Like, I think if there was a little bit more variety, it would be easier to sell, but it's literally 48 of the same couch, right? I didn't ask him what couch. And like the thing that you kept referencing is this was the perfect couch. It's very like stylish. It's in demand. It's brand name, quality construction. So I'd like to unpack that a little bit more. How much of a difference do you think it made in having that one perfect couch for that first 40 versus the mix of couches that you're trying to sell currently with the 63?
Yeah, so the big difference is the first set of couches I had were actually a complete couch, modular couch, 4-piece. You got 2 corners, a middle section, and 2 middle sections actually to create like a L. And with those, it's complete in the buyer's eye. It's a full couch. It's modular, it's cloud, it has a brand backing it. And I think all that made it to where it was a great couch, a great buy. And then the 63 units, the first 40 I got were cloud couches as well. Great colors, gray, light gray, and like a darker gray. 4-piece, 3-piece with an ottoman. Looks tremendous. Like, I've had the same ad running on Facebook for the last 3 months, and it would just generate so like maybe 10 to 15 messages a week for the past 3 months, just doing its thing. Don't even have to change it. The picture just draws people in, but then people want to come see it, right? And then they come test it out. And what I was facing with that is they would feel the quality, and the quality just wasn't there, to be honest. Just thin, not to get into the quality, but it was mainly polyfill in the bottom cushions with a thin pad, to where you could tell with the fabric and just the stuffing that it wouldn't last. It was one of those couches probably won't last the longest. Ways that I've gone around that is stuffed up the cushions a bit in the show model, and also when I do a delivery, if I feel like it's necessary. Some come where it's not as much padding, but the other 23 sets I got, the reason I think it didn't do as well, and probably is if we're talking about the same person that you just had a call with, I think I know who it is. What I think it was is they were overstocked couches that weren't complete. They're basically they were missing corner pieces, and it was a couch where you bring in 2 kind of like end tables and trying to complete a couch that really wasn't a couch to begin with. It wasn't. There was never a model online of this couch. It was kind of like a put it together couch flipping sandwich, got it for cheap. And yes, the potential returns were there, but the main factor of who would want it was the big question mark, even when I got them as well, is how long it would take. And it took myself a little longer than expected, and my margins were around that same mark of like about 300 per set, which were a lot less than I was expecting coming from a name brand couch. But I think that was the big difference is the style was a little off in terms of it not being an actual like complete couch with armrest and whatnot.
I mean, that's a really important lesson. And I think for anyone listening now who is contemplating whether or not they should buy a pallet of new couches, like listen really carefully, right? It's super, super important if you're going to get 40, 50 of the same couch that you get the right couch. So, however much time you're taking to evaluate whether or not you should buy a used couch on Facebook Marketplace, you should spend 40, 50 times as much time evaluating whether or not you want to buy this pallet of new couches.
Yeah, very do your homework for sure. Because like I said, after the first one, I just thought like anything I touched would turn to gold. And I also have another load that just came in. It was kind of split load with my uncle, who's in a different. He has like a physical location selling more like grocery and whatnot. But we ended up getting a load through his connection straight from manufacturer, and see the colors we got, and then with these you can tell the way they're not moving as great as you would think is just because there's a gray and then there's a brown, but also the style's not there. You know, you could tell they're couches from like 2010, kind of plain Ashley furniture style. Not they don't got no flavor. So you learn a lot about. I've been learning a lot about just what couches really do perform, and just do your homework for sure before you decide to buy anything in bulk. And just remember, the used game is loyal and will always take care of you. So make sure to keep that going. Don't jeopardize your bread and butter, your foundation, your main source of income to like leave. Don't leave that to go try something if it's not proven yet and you haven't 100% done it yet. You know, because that's a mistake I made due to lack of space for like a month or two, where the used wasn't as running as strong, and I'm figuring things out with the new, and that led to a lot of just like feeling like you're in the fight, in the fire, figuring things out. But we're on the tail end where things are well, and this I'm sure is not going to be the last kind of experiment for sure.
Absolutely, especially on the road to success, right?
Yeah,
Once you're comfortable selling a pallet of new furniture, I don't assume that's where you're going to stop. So maybe in a couple of years, you're going to have a huge furniture emporium. You're selling multiple pallets a year. Who knows what the top could be? All right. Well, I think this is probably a good point for us to end. This is the longest podcast I've recorded to date. And I know that honestly, we could just keep going on and on and on, but I think we should save it for a future episode.
absolutely.
Dontae, always a pleasure chatting with you. Looking forward to having you on in the future. And just thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, brother. And I just respect everything you're doing for the community and the lessons you gave me today. I saw a side of you that I haven't got to experience yet, that we've talked in the past about our stories a bit, but man, the lessons you gave me right now was more or less like hearing from a mentor, like an uncle dropping some game on me, or a big bro. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. That's what we're here for. Thanks, Dontae.